Welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. I'm Sheng Peng, editor-in-chief of San Jose Hockey Now. You can also find my work at MEC Sharks and on Twitter at Sheng_Peng.
And I'm Keegan McNally. You can find my Twitter at halfwall_hockey, my website half-wallhockey.com, or at San Jose Hockey Now. This week, it's the 1 week after opening week. Bam. All right.
Yep, we're going to talk all about the Sharks' first couple of games, Macklin Celebrini's injury. Also, too, we missed doing our bold predictions. But anyway, so wanted to say that. So sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Maybe next year. So because a lot has happened already this weekend that kind of changes our bold predictions. But let's talk about the Sharks' first couple of games here.
Yeah, unfortunately, the bold predictions have been kind of ruined by some news, but briefly we're gonna discuss a few things. We're gonna discuss the San Jose Barracuda, including some surprising additions and I guess people who have been stuck around, and the play of one Yaroslav Askarov. We're gonna talk about the Celebrini injury, which is the big news of the week. And finally, we're going to go over just some opening weekend reactions and impressions, what we thought of the first couple games.
I promise, guys, that I will not talk all about Luke Kunin.
It's going to be a Luke Kunin. No, it's all going to be a Barclay Goodrow episode. I got a lot of good things to say about Goodrow, and I'm sure you do too. All right. It's going to be kind of a quick episode this week. We'll have a lot more next week. But this week, let's talk about the Barracuda. We had, I guess, there was a choice for one Kasper Halttunen to either be sent back to the London Knights in the OHL or to remain with the Barracuda. And after, now 2 games, he looks to be pretty comfortable. He had a pair of goals in his first game, and it seems to be that he's going to stick around camp for a little bit, including also with one Luca Cagnoni.
Right, and from what I understand, though, that this is not the NHL and the 9 games thing, that the agreement here for Cagnoni and for Halttunen, that they have roughly, I didn't get the exact day, but roughly the CHL, the trade deadline in the respective leagues, which is early January. Mm-hmm. So the Barracuda/Sharks have until then to decide what to do with them. It would, of course, be a shock if they return Cagnoni just based on how terrific he was in the preseason. Sure. And with Halttunen, got to give him credit. I was wrong. I thought that he would be a easy guy that you send back, but his shot, obviously, it plays here. It plays in the AHL. We've seen it in a couple of games here. Of course, big question is what's he got beyond the shot? I actually am very excited to watch him play next weekend live at the Barracuda, the home opener. Cagnoni too. But anyway, so they have made a team, but it's not time for them, of course, to rest on their laurels yet. Not that they will, but there is still an option for the Sharks to return them back.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see just how it all shakes out, right? Like if the respective junior clubs are vying for a very high slot in the playoffs, the Barracuda are not. Do they just kind of say, we'll go play more important games for your or if they're not, cut the mustard in the AHL.
I think it's more if they're cutting the mustard or not.
Yeah. But the Barracuda also just look improved by the score sheet, at least. Like that initial, I can't remember the last time the Barracuda started the season with a shutout. Like, that doesn't seem very Barracuda-like to me.
Well, a couple years ago, they did have a pretty good start to the season, right? I think when they opened Tech CU, they went like 4-0 the first 4 games.
Did they?
People were going kind of a little bonkers talking about.
Oh, they did have a good
about playoffs and whatever. So
yeah,
long season. It's not 82 games, so 76 games. No, is it 76? It might be. I don't even remember for the changes feels like it changes every couple of years how many games played, but might be 76 games or a little less.
Sure.
And anyway, yeah, I want to see them live. So I'm excited about this weekend. But yeah, the big part of that is that if they have made an improvement, is that they've added a number one center in Andrew Podorowski. They've added a number one defenseman who's not playing yet, and Lucas Carlson. They're
Yep.
not exactly sure when he'll be back week to week. That's what John McCarthy told me. They've added a number one shutdown defenseman in Jimmy Schultz, and they added a number one goalie and maybe the number one goaltending prospect in the world in Yaroslav Askarov. And so, yeah, you better win some games with those kind of additions. And Askarov, of course, had a shutout in his first game. 5-0, and he did a very Askarov thing at the end. He closed the door. Some people described it as putting the net to bed. I saw it more as closing the door. I think they're both pretty valid. And so, yeah, I think Askarov is going to be a lot of fun. He's going to make some people mad too, of course. But hey, if he backs it up with his play, I think the biggest part too is that if his teammates don't mind. There could be situations where other teams will be looking for reprisals because of some of Askarov's antics. But if his team is happy to back him up, and if Askarov is playing as well as he did on Saturday night in the shutout, then I shouldn't be any issue. But yeah, so that's my general opinion of it. I don't have a specific problem with even the bench press. I don't have a specific problem with it as long as his teammates don't mind it.
I mean, it's a little bit ballsy to your first game in the AHL to put the net to bed. I love it. I'm super excited about him. The energy related to that position is like it feels like it's been a bit since the Sharks have had somebody that exciting. So I'm hopefully he's going to get a couple more games, and then we'll see where it goes from there. See if they have any room for him in the NHL, or if it's going to continue with the tandem of Vanacek and Blackwood, which have both been good. So
yeah, I saw a kind of I didn't see the full quote or anything like that. I just saw on Twitter it was I don't know if it was a Rain reporter or even just a fan. His name was Kyle Garcia. I just remember the name. So but anyway, he said that Marco Sturm, our good buddy Marco Sturm, said that Askarov is an NHL goalie.
Yeah.
Which is after you get shut up on, he's an NHL goalie. What are you supposed to do? And so anyway, so that's the impression that Askarov gave the opposition that first night. And I also wanted to add, just to kind of jump topics here, that I had a story a few days ago. Again, this is I think this should close any of the issue or any of the stories or jokes about Askarov not wanting to be in AHL, or national reporters saying Askarov got cut but without any context, or Predators media writing Askarov because he got sent down. That Askarov doesn't seem to have any issue being in the AHL. I wrote a story about that. The title of the story is Askarov has no problem in the AHL. That's from 4 days ago, I think. Yeah. Talked with his agent, Dan Milstein, who corroborated that was something that he spoke with Mike Greer before the trade was consummated, that Askarov knows that in San Jose, there are two veteran goalies there in Blackwood and Vanacek, that there is not an immediate path to a job unless, of course, in training camp, Askarov was lights out and just outplayed both Blackwood and Vanacek, but Askarov was hurt for all training camp.
Never had a shot.
Yeah, so that's not a relevant argument. And versus Nashville, which once again, they signed a goalie for 8 years. There was no path for Askarov to be the starter there unless, I think Saros got hurt, so okay. But that's not anything that you can count on. The number one guy signed for 8 years to get hurt, and that's your only chance to be the guy. And so that's the big difference between Milwaukee and Nashville. We don't know more about Askarov has not wanted to talk about it. We don't know too many details in terms of what Nashville presented to Askarov in terms of a plan or whatnot. But the point overall is that Askarov has no problem being in the AHL with the San Jose Barracuda. And you can see that too. Even just that celebration you did, the closing the door / putting the net to bed, he's having fun. And every indication that I've seen in terms of, I interviewed him about Askarov about a week ago when he was at Barracuda practice. I think the second or third day, he was his normal ASCII self. You've seen interviews with him that he is a goalie for sure. He's a different sort of dude, but he's always got a smile on his face. And anyway, so I sense no issue with it when I spoke with him. Also talking with John McCarthy a couple times, no issue there. And then again, confirming it with his agent, no issue there. And so anyway, we can, I think, put that to bed.
Yeah, I'm excited. Got nothing else to add. I'm just super pumped. He seems like he. Say again.
No, you go ahead. I was gonna ask you a question, but I interrupted you there though.
It seems like he's going to do well for the Barracuda for the time being, and that makes me really excited because we had all these questions in the summer about what they were going to do with the Barracuda goalies and like are they going to go after somebody, and then bam. And I always forget it's been just an interesting summer for Mike Greer, and I loved the instant reward that Mike Greer gave to Askarov of here's $2 million by 2 years for you.
Oh yeah, that's a big part of it, I think, because we have no idea if Nashville was willing to offer that much or that much money per year AAV, which is not a ton for a starting goalie, but it's pretty good for a guy that's played 3 complete NHL games. So who knows, right? Maybe Nashville's like, we want to stick with a 2-way, or we'll give you a 1-year contract for close to the veterans
league minimum
or something like that, right? So these are small details that we don't know. So if you are entirely on the Predators' side in all this, I mean, it's fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be, but I feel like there are a lot of things that we don't know. And hey, granted, we don't know exactly what Askarov said to Barry Trotz, to Mitch Horn. Maybe he said like, hey, I want to be the number 1 guy. But I guess the reason why I do kind of buy a little more of what Askarov is saying or their point of view is that it is very unusual for a young goalie to be like, hey, I want to be the starter after 3 NHL games under his belt. That just is not normal. And I know Askarov is not normal.
Sure.
I mean that in the best way possible. All but right. that would be a very unusual thing for an NHL player to kind of put that, like, you have to get rid of Saros. Make me the number 1. Especially with Saros, obviously with Saros' credentials, his resume. It makes me think, because there were rumors last year that they were going to trade Saros before Andrew Burnett pulled the plug on the U2 concert, right? Nashville was kind of scuffling there, and they looked like they were just one of those mushy middle teams that needed to make some moves to kind of start a rebuild, to kick a rebuild off. And so maybe somebody said, I'm not saying it was Barry Trotz. I have no idea. This is me just speculating now, but maybe there was some kind of idea then that, hey, we're going to anoint you, Yaroslav, something like that. So we don't know the full story. Askarov doesn't want to talk about it. I don't think the Predators have really revealed the full story either. So yeah, I think there's a lot more to this that we'll learn over the years, but I want to be so quick though to just, again, which you suggested that the national media did a little bit on clowning on Askarov for getting cut. Obviously, Predators, Barry Trotz has talked a little bit more about it to local media there, radio station, all that kind of stuff, right? And Predators writers I've seen kind of jump on Askarov, but I wouldn't be so quick to just take the Predators' side. I think there's a lot more from both sides that we need to hear. All.
Yeah, that $4 million doesn't seem like a lot, but it might be the money that secures his life in terms of like he gets injured or something. So it's like, I think there was a lot of pluses for Askarov, and I think sure there was pluses for Nashville as well, because David Edstrom's got like 6 points in 8 games in the SHL this year.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
Yeah, he's been playing really well. Got like 15
a source
minutes
told
a night,
me, I don't remember
18.
who it was, but a source told me that Askarov was really happy about the contract. Like that was a meaningful thing. I didn't put it in the story because I honestly don't remember who told me.
Yeah. Okay.
but it seemed like I could buy it though, because for Askarov, a contract like that, I mean, it's a great contract for both sides.
Sure.
It shows faith in Askarov for sure, right? It is short term enough that if Askarov is brilliant and becomes a top NHL goalie, that his big payday is coming really, really soon, right? That contract kicks in next year. So it is for 25, 26, and 26, 27. So he's going to get a chance at a big payday if Askarov is as good as billed. And for Sharks, it's a reasonable, if things don't work out or for whatever reason, Askarov isn't quite as good as everybody is hoping, that it's $2 million a year. You can live with it. It's not like you gave Askarov a 5-year, like a Cal Peterson contract where you tied into it and it's like, oh, this guy isn't as good as we thought. Oh shit.
Yeah, we're stuck with the Jack Campbell and the Cal Peterson.
Right. That's another good one too. So I think it's a good deal for both sides. What I did want to ask you is before we move on from Askarov is when do you predict that he is a full-time NHLer?
Ooh, that's tough. Next year. I'm gonna go
You
with
think
next
next
year.
year? You don't think
I
trade
think so.
deadline?
Maybe. I guess if you mean full time NHLers, like not starter. Yeah, maybe after the trade deadline. Maybe they trade somebody like Vanacek or Blackwood who's
Maybe
doing
that's what
well.
they want to do at least, right? But
Yeah.
as we remember, everyone assumed that Capo Kakinen was getting moved for a lot, and that
The
didn't
newest
happen.
Colorado
He did get
Avalanche.
moved, but not for a lot. So
The newest Colorado Avalanche.
right,
Capo
newest
Kakinen.
Av, Capo Kakinen. So hey, he got picked up on waivers. I didn't even know if he was going to get picked up. So
Yeah, there's
good
some
for
upside
Trevor
there.
Mining.
I bet he's gonna do great for some reason. It's just one of those goalie things where they get waived and then they go to a new team that's super good and they look awesome behind them and you're like, oh man, Capo Kakinen was great all along, and it's like, no, he wasn't. He just is on a really good team. So I bet that's what's gonna happen. Anyway, I'll say next year. I'll stick with that, and we'll see.
I'm gonna go with trade deadline.
That's fair. It's gonna be tomorrow then.
It could be. That's one of those things that you do never know. Like Askarov is close enough for sure.
Yeah.
If Blackwood and Vanacek both perform very well, there might be a
Yeah.
trade market. They're both UFAs, so they're not. Whoever's trading for them isn't making any kind of commitment really beyond this year, which makes them more attractive oftentimes. And so something could happen, materialize.
Yeah. It seems like Miker's he's got the advantage of time in that situation where he can just kind of wait out whoever's going to be good. If it's going to be Vanacek or Blackwood or Askarov, and then see what happens next year. And
Right.
he's using the fact that he knows this year is like it's a rebuilding year. It's not like you're tearing it down. It's like a building up year, so you can kind of wait and evaluate your team. So
Yeah,
I like it.
And specifically for Askarov, he's waiver exempt too
Yeah.
this year, right? So we take advantage of that.
Yep.
And you do have two veteran goalies.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on to some less happy news. Our God Emperor Macklin Celebrini. I don't know what the
Our
I don't know what I
godhead.
used. Emperor of the Universe Macklin Celebrini is injured. Put on IR. It was just a very sad tweet. I remember reading from the San Jose Sharks PR. It was just Macklin Celebrini has been placed on IR, and I went, oh. No, just super sad because he had such a good first game. There was a lot of hype, and then you had tweeted, "Oh, Macklin's not at practice the next day," and I was like, I wonder if they're just holding him out. It's fine." And then it got worse and worse and worse, and now he's on IR for at least a week. I think till next Thursday he has to be on IR.
Yeah, the way it works is basically the day after the injury and then 7 full days. You do the math on that. That means that the next time you can come back is not the Chicago game, which I know everybody would like because Celebrini and Bedard, but it'll be October 18th, which is the Winnipeg game. That's his best case scenario.
Yeah, the Ken return date. And you had mentioned off air that this kind of gives them another week to look at the forward situation because they were running 15 forwards and 6
Right.
D, and now they're running 14 forwards, and they recalled Jack Thompson for the 7th D. A more traditional lineup, I guess, is the way to put it.
Right. Definitely does buy time with that, but that's not why they did it, of course.
No.
But it does help with that and figure out what you're gonna do with it actually buys your boy Danil Gushchin some time, and then Giovanni Smith obviously is another guy in between, Clean Costin, guys like that.
Yep.
Also too gives you a chance to evaluate Thompson too, because the way the Sharks defense played in the first 2 games, up and down if we're being kind, and so there's gonna be probably a chance for Thompson to play at some point too. But on Celebrini's injury specifically, so I learned that it was a hip injury. You saw the story that I put out on it. I would say that I wrote that story very, very carefully. I'll put it that way because I didn't want to. It's Celebrini,
Sure.
and so I didn't want to freak out, or I didn't want to soft pedal it too, make it too nothing of a deal. I don't think it's a nothing deal. So I've kind of heard that it may not be much, just like one of my sources indicated. But I've also sort of heard that not that it's bad, but there's a little wait and see to it. and which is also reflected in the story that I wrote. And so I'm going to lean just to be cautious. I don't want to tell you that it's nothing when I don't know for sure that it's nothing.
Yeah.
So it's a little wait and see, which may be what the IR is for, in terms of just letting whatever's going on with his hip, just let it kind of get better on its own, and then see how he feels in a week.
Yeah. I mean, he's 18. He'll bounce back.
He should. I know a lot of people are freaked out because it's the hip, which is scary. But, and also too, Macklin was kind of banged up for a lot of preseason or whatever, right? I think I still haven't confirmed if it's exactly what he had.
Yeah.
We know he got in. We know that he left after the crashing against the boards against Utah. And we also know that even before the Utah game, he was dealing with something. He left the practice before that. I think it was on the second or maybe the third or fourth day of practice. I'm not really sure which. Pretty early, though, in training camp. And the Sharks have been very coy about telling us what is what. And they just give me motivation to find out what is what, which is what I which is what I did. So I understand that, again, like I mentioned, that he played through an opening night. I think one takeaway that many fans have had is that if he can do that
with a bum hip,
whatever, 90% or 80%, well, yeah, whatever, that great things are in store for Celebrini and Sharks fans. I did notice that, and we will talk about it, I guess, more when we talk about the actual game itself, but on that overtime goal, you did see Celebrini didn't seem to have as much pop when he got beat by, I don't remember who beat him up the ice. I think it was the guy who scored the overtime winner. So was that Shed maybe? He didn't have much pop when he tried to close down on Shen in the neutral zone, and then he also wasn't close to catching him either. So that was kind of un-Celebrini like from what we've seen. So maybe at that point, then that's a kind of when you can't play with it, kind of,
Yeah, maybe it was knew it was kind of injured. He might not be able to hurt it worse by playing, and he really wanted to play in the season opener.
I think he did. Yeah. I know that his family was there.
Yep.
And so planned in advance too. I'm not saying that's why he did it. I'm not saying that. I'm not putting blame on him. I'm putting blame on the Sharks. I've seen fans. It's Celebrini. Fans are going crazy about it. Like, how could the Sharks let this happen? Or one person said, "Why are you revealing information about our team?" And I had to remind this person, I do not work for the Sharks, and I'm a reporter. And this is the 2024 first overall pick.
Yeah,
and we don't know what his injury is. So that's my important job. If the Sharks don't want me to dig for this stuff, they should hire me. I'll be honest. So that's how you take me off the streets.
Take me off the streets.
If you don't want me to do my job on the streets. So anyway, So, but I get it because it's Celebrini. This is like Erik Karlsson 2019 times 5, just because this is the number 1 pick. The team has been in dumps for so long, so this is huge. I get all that stuff, but the Sharks, I think, thought he was fine at play, and he was fine to play. He wasn't perfect, but he was pretty good throughout regulation, right? Until maybe if we see he didn't play the last 340 of that game, so I wonder if that's when they kind of were.
Yeah, but they also sat like Smith and Gushchin.
No, that could be part of it too. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I couldn't tell you exactly, but he definitely did look in an overtime shift not quite Celebrini-like. I think we can agree on that.
Kind of slowed down a little bit. I think the first period he had so much pop, we were like, this is amazing, and then it was just kind of slowed down. Maybe injury, maybe who knows? But
who knows? And of course, he wants to play in opening night. So so I don't think it's any situation where you put blame on anything. It also was one thing that somebody did mention that makes sense is that there is no way his dad, Rick Celebrini, the director of sports medicine and performance, would let his son play. I'm not saying that Rick Celebrini is calling the shots. It's a Sharks decision, but if Mac was clearly hurt and the Sharks are just trying him out there because they're trying to sell tickets, that would not. That wouldn't fly. Mac is not going to be a Shark for long if that was the case. So I don't think it was anything like that too, which is worst case fans are talking about. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I think the best piece of advice is to, like, just everybody just calm down. Everybody
it's a
just
long
chill.
season, yeah.
It's a very long career for Macklin
Right.
Celebrini. Randy Hahn said on the broadcast, I think it was Randy Hahn last night, was just like they're playing the long game with this.
Oh,
This
I
isn't.
saw Drew. Drew who
Or maybe
said
it was
that.
Drew. Yeah. Sorry, Drew. Yeah, they're playing the long game with this. Like, it's going to be a long career for Macklin, and you want to not start it off with, like, ruining his hip. So if there is something going on, sit him and reevaluate it in a week, and give chance for more guys like Jack Thompson to come up and play. So, I mean,
He's a
they
hockey
already
player
know.
too. He plays
Yeah.
through injuries, which is what apparently he did, which is normal.
Yeah, and for his opening night of his first NHL game to get his first NHL point, assist, goal, all of the above, I'm sure it
Yeah,
was
he's
worth
done it all. He can retire now.
He's
so.
done. He's done. He's a 2 point per game player. He's better than Wayne Gretzky. He
Right.
is a
Highest point per game in NHL history.
yeah. He could just be done. What is Gretzky's point per game? I really now I got to look it up.
Oh, I don't know. It's not 2 though. It's not quite 2.
It's not 2, right?
Yeah, he
Has
played
so
out
many
the
down
string a little
years.
bit long there. So he did some good service.
1.92.
1.92, yeah.
Yeah. So he could be done. He's better than Gretzky. Yeah. So that's the long and short. I think everybody just needs to kind of chill. This season is a building year. This is the find out what you got at your Celebrinis, your Will Smiths. Watch them get better. Watch some of your other prospects develop. Everybody just chill.
Oh, this is great. I never
year.
did the segues here. I have a great segue here. So somebody
Sure.
needs to chill the fuck out about Danil Gushchin. What a great segue. So let's talk about
Sure.
our opening weekend impressions, including Danil, and we'll talk about Macklin in game 1 too. But let's
Yeah.
talk all about Danil because
Sure.
Keegan, as you
I
guys saw
think
on
first of
Twitter,
all,
or I'll let you. Okay.
First
I'll
of
let
all,
you speak.
I'm being snarky for fun on Twitter, so I was having a good time.
That was a great segue, though, right?
That was really good. I know. I do the segues, so that was
Yes,
very
exactly.
good.
I saw the opportunity and I had to take it. So
I
I had
was
to take the
being-
shot. I
was being
had
very-
good tone. I had good tone.
I was being very snarky. The Sharks had just put on IR their one very good offensive player, and then they decide that sitting down Gushchin and putting in Grundstrom was the best idea, or putting in a bunch of other players instead of
Kostin and
Gushchin.
Grundstrom.
Kostin and Grundstrom.
Yeah, that's what they put in.
I really thought that maybe he would. I thought after he took the penalty that he was going to sit a game, just because I know how NHL coaches work, and I was like, great, he gets to sit because that's what they're going to do. So, like, I knew it was going to happen, but I still was upset about it. So I put out some tweets where I was like, well, looks like the Sharks have to now sit the next 6 different players for the next game because they all took stupid penalties because, Kostin threw a sucker punch and Sturm tripped somebody and,
Well, Kostin, in his defense, that was
I know.
they both went to the box.
I know, but he kind of evened it up and all that shit. So, either way, it's like every single player in the NHL makes a dumb penalty every night in the NHL, but Goose gets sat because he's 5'8". It's the absolute truth of it, and it is what it is. And he's a rookie and all that shit. So, like, he's a young guy. So, I'm not.
I am just listening patiently. I don't want to interrupt you, so
Okay.
you're wrong. But go on though.
I'm not wrong. I mean, I am wrong. I'm over dramatizing it, but
Yeah,
the core tenet is there. It's that you have to somehow be better than a bunch of other dudes on your fourth line, even though you were better than them, and also not make any mistakes. And I think he played better than his fourth line mates in that game, and I'll stand by that. He had more hustle. He won more battles. He just took a shitty penalty. He wasn't like very dangerous, but he's also playing with not amazing players either.
Yeah, but you're going with that old excuse. Okay, so the first thing I do want to say is that we don't know that he got sat because of the penalty. He actually played a shift after the penalty, and
But he was also sat like right after that.
Let me finish. Warsawski actually sat pretty much all the young players at the end of the game. So that includes Gushchin, that includes Will Smith, and that includes the golden boy, Macklin Celebrini. Now, we don't know if that was because of Mac's injury, but still, all of them. Mac didn't play the last 342. I'm not sure what Smith's numbers were, but he didn't play at the end of the game either. So
I think they all said 340 was like nobody played. None of the young guys, like
okay,
Smith, Goose, or whatever.
Gushchin was already not playing a lot of shifts because he was on the fourth line anyway to begin with. And so
I meant sat as in like the next game. I knew he was going to sit.
Well, yeah, but again, though, you're drawing the conclusion it was because of the penalty.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was. It might have been. We didn't ask Warsawski directly. I don't know either way. But I personally didn't think the penalty was so egregious that it was like, oh, yeah, he's going to get sat. There are some penalties you see that, okay, that guy's going to get sat because that was just dumbass, right? But I didn't necessarily see that. And I want to say this up front, too, that I like Danil Gushchin. I thought that the first game that he probably should have been on for me, he probably should have been on the third line because I think it would have been a good mix with Wennberg.
Sure.
We've talked about how Wennberg needs a shooter. And the third line of Goodrow, and I think it was he would have probably replaced Kunin on that line. Of course, you guys know I like Kunin, but for the balance of the line, I kind of like trying Gushchin out there with Wennberg and Goodrow, and then put Kunin on your fourth line. Not because necessarily that I think that Gushchin is every day going to be on a higher. I mean, at least right now in Gushchin's career, I know when Gushchin reaches his ceiling, he should be on a higher line than Kunin. But right now, though, I don't. That's not necessarily what I think. But for the balance of the lines, that's what I would have tried. So want to put that out there. I do also want to put out though that in that game against St. Louis, where the Sharks were kind of run out of the building for a lot of the game, in my opinion, except for that second period, that you can make an argument that that third line was actually maybe the most consistent line of all of them.
Yeah, I thought it actually looked pretty good.
Okay,
Goodrow had good. Like I'm not dogging the third line. I think they had a good. Then mostly ran by Goodrow, who's been playing really, really well.
Well, let's give Kunin hit a post there
Kunin
too.
did,
So we'd be talking a lot differently if that puck had went in, and we're talking about a 5-4 skin of the teeth Sharks victory because Luke Kunin scored a goal. But
the loudest post in NHL history. Were you
loud?
Did you hear that?
Yeah, we did. We heard
So
it. I think people were talking about it in the press box how loud that
they had it. I don't know if they had the mic next to that post, but it was like on TV, the loudest fucking post I've ever heard. Anyway,
so love Luke, love Barclay Goodrow or not, you can say that they were. I don't want to overstate it. They weren't amazing, but they were at least decent, right? The first, at least, right? And that's what Warsawski thought because that's the only line. Granted, Celebrini got hurt, so that kind of changes things up. But that's the only line that he kept from the first game into the second game, and they were probably better in the second game overall. So I want to put that out there. I think the main thing I would say to you with the Gushchin stuff is that he was. I'm not sure if he was that much better than his line mates. I had to look at that. I thought that he was about the same. And yeah, he only got 9-10 minutes, but I don't think he did that much with it. Sure. He made some good plays, he made some okay plays, and he made some bad plays, which is fine, right? But he didn't stand out. It's not a 5'8" thing. You guys know I'm not about necessarily that size thing, just about the effectiveness. I didn't find him that much more effective or not effective than Nico Sturm and Ty Dellandrea. And so I think that's part of it. And I will add to it again that I am not the coach. I would have put Gushchin in the second game. And Ryan Warsawski didn't. But that's one thing that I want to go back I want to say that about my thoughts about their performance, that line's performance in the first game. Sure. And I think we're jumping games here, but the second game was one of the better games at 5-on-5 that I've seen the Sharks play in the last year. Like literally, like if you are a Sharks fan and you're looking for like kind of a ray of light that's not named Macklin Celebrini or Will Smith or the obvious, that the Sharks are able to play a good team game. And granted, it was just the Ducks, I know, but that should be more of the story than Danil Gushchin. I'm not saying that Danil would have hurt the team last night against the Ducks. I'm not suggesting that at all. But the guys that he put in, Kostin was actually really, really good and consistent. This sucker punch wasn't great, but that was coincidental. But he was good. I thought he was good. I actually thought he was very, very good, engaged and consistent throughout the game. And one of those Klim Kostin things that when he was on in that game, that he was very, very dangerous and one of the better players on the ice. And when he wasn't as on, that he wasn't bad. like he can be sometimes. So I think that was a good, clean Kostin game. I think that the problems with that line aren't so much clean, to be honest. And Carl Grundstrom, the line of Grundstrom, Sturm, and Delandra was arguably granted they only played a few minutes together. I think 9 minutes overall for Sturm, but that was arguably the Sharks' best line of the night overall. I don't know, they were very, very good.
I think
And
Delandria
so
was very good. I think
Delandria was good. Sturm had the penalty, yes, so you can knock him on that.
right.
But I think he was very, very good otherwise in terms of neutral zone. Like last night, what I saw was a team that back checked. Goodrow was creating havoc on the back check, right? Like Sturm usually would too, right? But now you have a few of those guys doing that. It's not just Sturm doing that in a row over his head on the third line too. Sturm on the fourth line is where he should be, and you can see that I think he's having a kind of a strong defensive impact at least. And so I think what I'll put to you is that the Sharks played really great last night. And I'm not saying it's not.
And they scored 0 goals.
They did. It's true, but let's talk about the process, though, right? Like if we're talking about the process of winning games,
yeah,
that process that I saw last night is going to lead to more wins than whatever, like just the riding a shooting wave or whatever, getting lucky. They played genuinely good hockey against honestly a bad team. So it may not mean anything, but
it may not. But I also don't think that Danil Gushchin's 10 minutes or Grunstrom's 6 minutes or Kostin's whatever minute. I don't think those were the guys that like were going to make the difference in that game. I think the guys that played super well played really well. Jake Walman played amazing. Goodrow played amazing. Granlund, Zetterlund, they all had great chances. But it's not like I think what I'm trying to say is that it felt like because they sat Gushchin that he was never in the discussion to actually make the Sharks until he went out and had to have them keep him or else it was going to look bad, and then they just took any excuse that they could to sit him. And that's what it feels like. Like just from a fan perspective, because the way that the numbers shook out, like why in the hell do they have 15 forwards instead of it just felt like it was okay, we're going to put him in this situation where we're asking him to play a physical fourth line style game, and he tried his best. I mean, he's not that kind of player, but he definitely tried to lay hits, was consistently hustling, back checking.
Well, he should do that on any line though. That's what I know. But I'm just saying, like riding row is what I would. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, one can assume, but you're right. It's not like they said, "Oh, well, we need him to be a grinder." But the point is,
on any line he's on, he's got to lay the body sometimes. He's got to at least get in the way of people.
Yeah, but I think it's just honestly one after one game, it just felt like they wanted any excuse to sit him, and then they took it. And if that's the case, and that keeps going on, honestly, it's just,
I think that's a super hard reading into it that I will agree that I think that everybody was surprised by how great he was. I mean, come on, even you, a huge fan. I don't think you were seeing 9 assists and 9 points and a 5 assist finale, right? So nope. I think everybody was surprised by.
But I really wanted them to like actually try it. Like have him try being a player in a role that he's going to play, and not just like, I don't know, do this because this is exactly what he doesn't need. So
right, but I guess what I'd argue is that what you're more upset about isn't even the Sharks or look like. The guy was taking his spot, and I've said it like 2 weeks. It's Will Smith, and I think Will is a great prospect, right? But like right now, though, like if you talk about the top 6 and you're doing the math on that, right? That like Will's a guy that Gushchin could have been ahead of in that role. Because who else are you taking out? You're not taking out Eklund. You're not taking out Granlund. You're not taking out Celebrini. You're not taking out you're not taking out Zetterlund, right? So
now it's like Kostin's playing next to Smith. So.
Right. But Kostin has, I mean, you're not going to like hearing this, but Kostin has an argument for it. Kostin has been more productive than Gushchin in his career. Kostin, when he's on, right now is a better player than Danil Gushchin. I think. I don't know. We could be wrong, but I could be wrong by the end of the season about that. But right now, from what we've seen,
If you compare their NHL and AHL numbers, Gushchin for the ages, Gushchin's better. Like
I
his
don't care about
AHL
AHL
numbers,
I'm talking
NHL
about NHL.
numbers.
What we've seen NHL tape.
Well, he's going against 6 fucking games at 9 minutes a night.
All I'm saying is, I would have put Gushchin higher too. I'm not even disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that there's an argument for Kostin, is all. And,
there is. I mean,
right?
I think he's still useful, and he's a good player.
And Kostin has shown in the past that he's a good fit on sort of a right with last year with I think it was Granlund and maybe it was Zetterlund or was it Eklund? I don't remember, but he was a good fit with Granlund, I remember, and I think it was Eklund. But anyway, though, that he's a good kind of he can be when he's at his best a good complementary player. So it's just I just kind of think it's much ado about nothing. Let's see how it shakes out. I said this actually when Gushchin made a team, and I said I don't know. I think I did say this that I don't know how long he's going to be up with the Sharks because I just was looking at the numbers game, and they want to get they want to give Will Smith, and this is fine too. I want to triple repeat this that I'm not laying on Will Smith. This is their number 4 pick from a couple of years ago. They are not trying to make the playoffs this year necessarily. They want to see what he can do. They want to give him some time here to see what he can do. And actually, I thought Will was actually the best game that I've seen Will Smith play as a Shark was the first game of the season, in my opinion. So I don't think he was as good in the Anaheim game, but so I'm not faulting the Sharks for that. I'm not faulting Will Smith for that or whatnot, but that's the guy that is kind of that's who you can put. That's who you can reasonably, sensibly make sense to put in the top 6, right? That was game 1, and then we talked about last night, Kostin. Yeah, I'm with you, but I also get why Kostin was in there too. They didn't put Giovanni Smith on the second line or something like that, right?
Sure.
So. Yeah, you can make this argument, right? Like a line of Kostin, Smith, and Zetterlund. If it's Gushchin, Smith, and Zetterlund, is that not enough sort of mix of style, right? It's not the best mix in my opinion because I don't see a guy that I love in terms of doing the dirty work going to get the puck on that line as much. I know Zetterlund can do that a little bit, but.
I think issue with the Kostin Smith Zetterlund line is that the primary puck carrying has to go to Will Smith, and at this point, Will Smith he's not Macklin Celebrini in transition. Sure. He's not he's going to get there. He's going to be a good transition player, and he's going to be able to carry the puck into the zone, but it has to be him on that line because Kostin doesn't do it. Zetterlund doesn't do it really. It's going to have to be Smith carrying the puck over the line, and if you put on somebody like Gushchin on that line, maybe it helps divert a little bit of that attention from Smith.
I agree. That's actually a very good argument. Yeah, so I point out one thing that might be weak about the line, but what you point out is actually a strength of Gushchin's and of Celebrini and whatnot, right? And so sure. So I'm with you on that part of it.
I do want to say that I think it's much to do about nothing. I think they are just trying out. They have 15.
That's all I want to hear. Okay.
I think they have.
You can be mad on Twitter. I know you love your Goose, but
I think they had 15 guys they had to try out after, and they had to sit somebody, and so might as well I guess make it Goosh. I mean I don't think anybody else had him.
The trade deadline or something if this still holds, if Will Smith is
I think if they didn't want him here, they would have sent him down today anyway, and they didn't. So hopefully he does get more games.
Yeah, the Celebrini trade actually helps Gushchin out because there is all I was saying with Kostin is that there's an argument to put him there. I'm not saying that he is the guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's going to be an argument to put Gushchin and try him out there. And if by the end of this week Gushchin still doesn't get his opportunity, okay, then you have a little more reason to be concerned, upset, or whatnot. And then when we get to a couple months from now, okay, then we have something to talk about. But after one game. And after a game where the Sharks played, the second game where the Sharks played great, I thought that really, I'm not seeing the argument. So,
yeah, I'd put him back in.
I'm okay with it. I'm not saying one way or the other. I think that specifically, I have no problem if they repeat kind of repeat the lineup. I know that Matt Benning, some people are on him about his. I didn't think he was very good his first game. I actually thought he was much better. So maybe that keeps Jack Thompson out because both Thompson and Benning are right-handers.
Sure.
So I think you can make a good argument to keep the same lineup and see if you've kind of found something and put them against a much better Dallas team and see how they do. And if you run out of the building, okay, then throw Gushchin into your next game against Chicago. There is an argument too that you did need some more offense, you need some finish, and so you can do that too. You can put Gushchin in, but who do you take out? I don't think anybody deserves to be out. I guess I'll put it that way, right? I'm not saying that Gushchin deserved to be out either, but the Sharks definitely played better in the second game than the first game, so there is more of an argument to tinker.
I think they played a more complete game in the second. I think they didn't have nearly enough offensive pop because they were missing, Celebrini and all
mainly
that.
Celebrini, though. I mean, Gushchin hasn't established himself in NHL that you can tell me that you're missing much offensively when he's not in an NHL game. Not yet.
Hard to say if he would have stepped up if
right.
Was...
He might have. Yeah, he might have.
Yeah, especially because the Ducks are not like a powerhouse team. Like even St. Louis is a better team than the Ducks, and
right.
So I don't know. When they called up, or when we were talking about the preseason, I was like, if they call up Gushchin, I don't want it to be like 2 games and send down, or like get 8 minutes a night and send down, because I feel like it's just stupid. Like you got to give him an actual chance to prove what he has in a role that's gonna be like. And they tried, but I don't know. He's gonna need more time to really solidify into an NHL lineup, and that means games. So if the only way to get it is more injuries, then I guess that's the way it's going to be, or he's going to get sent down to the AHL. But
I just say that, like, it's 2 games, right? Like, let's give it like before getting too crazy. People, I think I saw another tweet,
I wasn't.
Like,
I also
trade Gushchin, not you, but like get Gushchin out of here.
Yeah. But also, I would also like to say, if you haven't read my Twitter, it wasn't like I was like, fuck the Sharks, they're the worst organization in the world. I can't believe they do this shit. I was making snarky, funny comments. Like, that it felt a little unfair what they did to the Goose. So that was making snarky.
Okay,
snarky
but again,
comments.
I don't think there's a vendetta against the Goose, all right? So.
Yeah, I think No, I don't think there's a vendetta. I think there's some preconceived notions of what the Gushchin is, even though he tries. He really does.
I think the Sharks know that. I think that's why it wasn't just the 9 points. I think that, and Warsawski did say that. He said the other thing. He talked about other things. He said that many times when we asked Warsawski about the points. So I would say that I feel like the Sharks have a decent sense of Gushchin. I don't know.
Yeah, they probably do.
Yeah. So, like, I'm with a little unfair, but like you were suggesting, like earlier in this episode, that it's more than that, which I don't like. Give it some time. Yeah.
I think if you need a guy to sit and you had to pick somebody, there's reasons why they picked him, and that's and I don't think it had to do specifically with how he played, because even Warsawski said he played solid. I guess maybe he was just trying to say that trying to be nice to the kid, but it wasn't like he was horribly out of his element. Like he's had previous NHL games where it's like I think he wasn't ready yet, but I think he just wasn't showing too much offensively.
Well, yeah, I don't think he was showing too much offensively. And I think that's why, because that's ultimately going to be his calling card. I think he was okay in other areas.
Sure.
But I think that what we saw from the team, it wasn't great offense yesterday, but it was actually good offense if you mean getting chances.
Yeah,
right?
They did.
They got chances. It's small sample size, but according to Natural Stat Trick, they had a 13-5 high danger at 5-on-5 edge and chances. Mm-hmm. And the Sharks that would last year that's like a 72% chance high danger chance share. That would have been the 3rd best number last year. So they were doing a lot of things right. They just
the team is much better. The team is much better than it was last year, just from off the jump. Like
it looks
much
like
better.
it. We don't know. I think I was concerned after that first period against.
Well, there was a crazy stat that they hadn't scored 4 goals until the 17th game of the year last year, and they had scored 4 goals in game 1.
Right.
Which is when they said that stat on TV, I was like, holy shit! I forgot how bad that team was, last year.
A really bad team. Yeah.
17th game of the year, it took us to score 4 fucking goals. That's so bad. Anyway, so they are better this year, and so the competition is a lot higher for someone like Goose to make it past guys that are more established NHLers. I also don't think guys like, people are like, well, why is like Wennberg or Goodrow or Kunin or these guys playing? And it's like, I think they've all actually been pretty good. So I think they've been fine. I think last night the worst line was Will Smith's line.
Right.
I think that was just a bad. I don't know if it was the combination of the 3 players, but
I thought Costin was decent, but I think the line itself though was problematic.
Didn't really work.
Yeah. We could talk about other get off the Goose. So I think we could talk a little bit about Macklin's first game actually. So we can go back to that a little bit. You just kind of jump around, but I thought that actually in some ways, I thought Will Smith was more efficient with the puck in the first game than Macklin. Not as many turnovers. Maybe Will is being a little too careful. That's what I've seen the last couple of games too. Overall, that he's still not kind of used to the pace, so he is hurrying pucks a little bit when he doesn't have to, or he just wants to not make a mistake kind of out there, right? Whereas like Macklin is a little bit more let her rip kind of.
Yeah, he's doing whatever he wants.
Yeah, and we saw that too, because I think there were a couple of puck touches by Macklin that I was a little surprised about in neutral zone that just that kind of missed their mark and led to counterattack, and was part of why St. Louis was so dominant in that first period. Not complaining about an 18-year-old doing what he did, so I think it's more about comparing him to like the all-star or like the highest standards, right? Standards I think he has for himself, that I think that that game there's still a lot for him to work on. I think that was a big part of it, just the puck touches. Also too, a big thing after the first game was to talk about the F3 not covering. That's basically talking about the centers, and that's Macklin, that's Will, and that's the other centers. And that there wasn't that talk after the Anaheim game, because the F3 was a lot better in terms of staying back and covering, kind of locking up the middle, the neutral zone a lot more. Actually, at the time that didn't work, the Anaheim game was partly the goal that was the Lunderstrom's goal was a bit on Smith there. But I think so. I think defensively there's a bit to work on for both Macklin and Will. This is not Macklin's fault because he fell, but I think the first St. Louis goal was a result of the F3 in Celebrini losing his balance, and then that led to the 2-on-1, I think, right? Of the first goal of the game by the Blues. So yeah, I think that needs to be cleaned up for Macklin. But overall, I think it was as good a debut as you can have for an 18-year-old.
Yeah. Went with the Eklund spinorama for his first goal off of a defender. So, yeah, exactly like he intended. The most memorable first NHL goal ever. I don't know. I think there was probably so much emotion and so many things going through his brain that he's just going to go play the most frenetic style, I guess, that he could. And just see how it happens. And he looked pretty good in parts. And I think no matter what, it's kind of just very clear that he's probably the best player on the Sharks just from watching him.
Do you think he's the best player on the Sharks? I don't know if he's quite the best player yet, but
I think it will be very long if we will say that.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with that. But
I think it won't be
my bold prediction was actually going to be that I think he's going to lead the Sharks in points.
Yeah, unfortunately, we won't know until his injuries cleared up.
I think right now Granlund is still the better player overall, but I think that's very quickly though. Yeah, I can see Celebrini out shooting him. I mean, you could see. I think how much Granlund helped. I thought Granlund helped Will Smith a lot in the first game. Was a big part of why I thought that Will, while not necessarily being better than Celebrini in the first game, was better in the first game overall than in the second game. And also too, his puck touches were more efficient because you had somebody to kind of there wasn't as much of the puck carrying, puck touches. It wasn't as dependent
On
on
Smith.
Will Smith. And then in the second game that I didn't notice this till the end, but Granlund played 24 minutes.
Jesus, I didn't realize that either.
Right, and so in effect, basically,
Mm-hmm.
I think Wennberg was about 14 minutes. Will Smith was about 13. Sturm was about 9. So basically, the Sharks were running out a 1C, 2 3Cs, and a 4C.
And a 4C, yeah.
And that's impressive. And that play that ultimately got called off, the offside, that play to Zetterlund, that's a brilliant play.
Yep.
Such a good play. Such a good play. And that's one thing that I think people like Granlund has these moments of just really like, yeah, in the end, he's probably better suited as a second, third line center. He tops out at about 60 points. He's not going to go to the Hall of Fame, right? So yeah, he's not going to be Macklin Celebrini, right? Likely, or whatever Macklin turns out to be. But he is capable of some special stuff. Even the first game, that assist to Fabian Zetterlund, I thought that overall Granlund got off to a slow start in that game. You know, he flubbed a grade A chance that Will Smith actually set up for him in the first period, right? But that's something that Granlund can kind of pull out, even when he's not having his very best game, that he can make a pass like that to Fabian Zetterlund, a slam dunk kind. And anyway, that was such a, I was joking with people that's a goal they should have allowed just on pure artistry, because that was such a great play by Granlund. And it's not even, I mean, the idea was great, right? I mean, anyone could kind of think of the idea, but the touch, to put it there and then put it in a place that Zetterlund could pick it up, skate into it in stride. That's the hard part. So the mindset to do that is one thing, and that's a challenge, and that's hard, and that's very special unto itself. But the other level of that was that puck touch, though, was
amazing.
Yeah.
That's an interesting. I wonder what happens with Granlund. I really do, and we're going to talk about it throughout the year. But like, what happens with him towards the trade deadline?
No, it's a good question. It's a good question.
He's a good player, and he does add a lot of. He's been mentoring guys like Eklund and now probably Will Smith.
I wrote an article of that just sort of the natural progression. Actually, there's a similarity in it, in a sense that at least what I think might happen with Smith, that Granlund was a much hyped, and then he came out. Granlund came over in his third, and when he was 20, so a year ahead of Will Smith. But in terms of Granlund struggled that first year and spent some time in the AHL. And in NHL, he was a little bit. He was a little bit overwhelmed. He said so himself when I spoke with him about it. But that progression the next summer, right? And his game took off. And then by his fourth year, he was a 60-point player. And obviously with Will Smith, you think, oh, maybe his ceiling's a little bit higher, but that kind of progression. And also too, Will said it himself that they play a very similar game, that they don't look the most physically impressive. Will Smith doesn't either. Mikael doesn't, but that they are so smart, and that they get quick enough and strong enough that where the kind of the genius starts to have a space to take over. And Will's got to get to that place. I'm not, again, I want to be very clear that when I said earlier about Will and Gushchin and how I think Will is kind of blocking Gushchin, if we're being honest right now, but that's not on Will, and that Will, the potential, I think, is off the charts with him. And I think Granlund is a good example of having that kind of patience with somebody who is a cerebral, smaller player, and that Will's going to take off and probably to heights higher than Granlund has in his career. So want to mention that again.
Yeah, and I wouldn't send Will Smith to the AHL, even if he's blocking like Gushchin or whatever. I think he needs more. We've talked about his brain a lot, but there's an adjustment period here, and you don't want to just write off because he's had a so-so first 2 games. Give him a shot.
I want to give him a month, and I thought his first game was better than so-so. That's my opinion. Last game was so-so. I don't. What do you think? Do you think the first game was so-so?
I think. Yeah, I mean he had moments. He didn't look overwhelmed. I think Granlund really helps his line, and I think the second one when it was all more on him, it kind of fell apart. So
Yeah, it
he
was a bit
he
tougher.
needs he needs somebody like Granlund to really to help him. So that's kind of tough because I don't think it's even if you put Goose there, I don't think Goose is the guy to like really. He's not Granlund, so
Right, and
it's
Wenberg's maybe the closest, but Wenberg obviously, or he
yeah,
can move Wenberg to the first line and then put Granlund back on the second line. But you're messing with a third line that is a little. We can move on if you want. We can talk more
sure.
about Will, but like
Yeah, let's talk
that
about the
third
third
line
line.
on the surface is kind of weird because you have a complete passer in Wenberg, you have Kunin and Goodrow, and neither who are finishers. Though Kunin has, I think, a better shot than
Yeah,
people give him credit
yeah,
for. But though that it looked kind of weird, but it's actually been it's been effective.
yeah.
So
They've been winning puck battles and they're not like gonna break the doors down in terms of offense, but they at least are having some shifts where they get it going and they kind of pressure and
yeah, yeah.
they all
Little
are
check shifts. Yep.
yeah they're all old enough vets that they understand how to maintain pressure like that and I like it. I honestly do, and I think people kind of wrote off Goodrow from the very beginning just because it's Barclay Goodrow and he costs a lot of money. But he adds something, and he wants to be here. That's all I've said ever since we claimed him. Is if he wants to play and he wants to be here, he's still a good hockey player. He's a good BKer as well.
I think he looks like a great PK to me.
Mm-hmm.
More than good. He might be the best one. I don't know. I just was watching him in preseason, just how he tracks people,
Yep.
and he's basically shadowing them the whole time. And he really does look to me like a guy that he was on the fourth line because the Rangers were just so deep. That wasn't
Yep.
because he was a bad player or that he wasn't capable of third line minutes anymore. Because he looks pretty capable.
He
Even
looks good.
on his goal, right? Which of course the goal itself there was a lot of luck with it, but like
Sure.
look at how he closes on Robert Thomas and forces a turnover. And Goodrow credit I talked with Barclay about it, and Barclay credited the pre-scout, and that's what St. Louis likes to do. So that's a big part of it too. So Doug Cuda deserves a shout out because the Sharks PK looks night and day as opposed to last season. But you got to give him credit for executing, for closing on Robert Thomas. That's arguably the Blues' best forward. He took it from him,
Yep.
had the breakaway, and that's great PKing.
Yeah.
So I think that
In the second
Barkley
game,
overall has been really good. Yeah.
I think in the second game he also had this like ridiculous sauce pass. I think it was Delandria that got that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like a change of shift thing, and he was from the neutral zone. He like had a sauce pass over a defender's stick, and Delandria went through the defense. I think it was Delandria.
Yeah,
But
I mean
anyway, it was,
he hasn't been perfect. I've noticed some turnovers he's made, whatever,
but
especially when the Sharks are getting overwhelmed. That he's not a guy that's going to rise above his team necessarily, right? Too
mhm.
much, right? But he's overall been
Yeah,
good, and I really have no issue. And then I guess since we're talking about that line,
sure.
Cunnin does look quicker than me. I don't know if it's just my
Yeah,
cunning eyes.
if you love Luke Kunin, or if I love Danil Gushchin, you love Luke Kunin. So
I just think that you know what, it's not even a love for Luke Kunin, to be honest. I just think that when I always like to I like to watch carefully the guys that fans pile on
sure.
and be kind of like, okay, maybe you shouldn't pile on this guy, or maybe hey, I watch it, you're right.
Yeah.
And I think that I mean both Goodrow and Kunin, the fans like to pile on them and whatever, right? That I think that they are good players on winning teams, that they are a good like third, fourth line types on winning teams, and they have been in the past. And so
Hmm.
when they look bad on the worst team in the second worst team in cap history, like Cunningham did last year, that doesn't really do anything for me because it's like, well, I mean, everybody looked bad. The only guy who rose above that was Mikael Granlund, dude, really, right? Even Eklund, Zetterlund, I mean, they were good in spots, but I wouldn't say they rose above. Granlund was the only guy who was like, clearly this guy does not
Mm.
belong on his team.
I'd give Eklund a pass because it was like his first
No, I give both him
season.
and
Yeah.
Zetterlund and Pastors Young. I'm just saying though that like Granlund was clearly
Yeah.
the one player on the team that's okay. That's a winning player. That's not a player just putting up points because he's on a shit team.
Yeah.
So anyway, so with Cunningham, yeah, I've thought that since kind of the beginning, that since the Sharks acquired him, he had like decentish numbers in Nashville, Minnesota. At least like when you do he hasn't been able to stay healthy, but you run the 82 games kind of thing, right, on his
Sure.
numbers. He looks like a 15 goal scorer and sounds like a third line player to me. And when he was healthier, like the first part of the season in San Jose, I thought he was better, and he got his knee injury. And I don't know, maybe I'm making too many excuses for him now, but he was coming back from a knee injury, and the team was god awful last year, way worse than even his first year with the team. And so he looked worse. And now it looks like he has like a little bit of a pop in his step, a quarter of a step more, or whatever you want to say. And the team looks a lot better, especially up front.
Yeah.
And so he looks better.
Yeah. I think he looks good. I think that whole line looks all right.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for Wennberg to really. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
Wennberg does have. Wennberg. That's the thing. I'm not sure Wennberg was going to score a lot on that line, no matter what, because he's a passer first, and
Yeah.
He's not playing with anybody that is even close to a natural goal scorer. And so I get the criticism of that line, like sort of the intellectual criticism of that line, but it's worked decently. Is the point though too that I'm going to give credit to Warsawski that it has worked though, even if they haven't been able to score quite yet, but that it's helped the Sharks keep the puck more on the side, more on one side. And the forecheck has been good, and all that good stuff. It's been decent. Yeah, I'm not saying it's like a role beating line, and it can improve, but
Sure.
it's decent. But I don't know if there's anybody else big that you wanna
Jake
touch on.
Wallman.
You've been
Fuck.
a big fan of Jake Walman.
Yeah, Jake Wallman's been excellent. Defensively, super engaged. He's a great shot blocker. He gets in his
He is a good shot
lanes
blocker. Yeah,
really,
I think
really
historically
well.
he is. Yeah.
I I honestly I just don't understand how we got him for negative value. I do not get it. He is the Sharks, like, right now, probably the Sharks' best defenseman,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. No, I agree. I think. Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
don't get it. Like, I really don't. I think he's gonna, if he keeps taking the reins as like probably the best Sharks defenseman right now, he's gonna just end up playing like 25 minutes a night in PK and penalty kill and or PK and power play and all sorts of shit. So I've been really impressed with him for 2 games. I don't know what the issue was in Detroit and why his that contract's not even that like horrible
No, it's
either.
not.
So I don't really understand it. I don't know if we'll ever understand it, but I've been very impressed with Jake Walman.
I like Jake. I wouldn't say that I've been like really impressed just because the Sharks defense, and that includes the
Yeah.
forwards too, even the forwards that we praise, like they had a really tough time against St. Louis. But I've liked him though, and he has been the Sharks' best defenseman. And one area that I watched really closely was on the power play because
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious how he would fit in that high a role, PP1. I think he's actually fit in pretty nicely. He's not brilliant on there. I don't think he's meant to be a PP1.
Yeah.
Ideally, he is a second unit quarterback probably, but I think he's done a good job though. He skates well. He has a good shot. We're I think going to see that gritty at some point because he's gotten some pretty good chances out there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've been pleased with his play. I think that the pairing with CC has been pretty solid too
Yeah.
overall. I think that they have been again they should not be a first pairing on a playoff team or whatever, but that are they better than Ferraro
Rowan
Emerson
Ruta.
last year,
Yeah.
whatever the first pairing
Ferraro
would have
and
been?
Emerson.
Yeah, or Ferraro and whoever they chuck next to him, that they have been better.
Yeah. It helps to add an entire NHL line of
Right,
defenders.
right,
Like,
entire pairing, right? To kind
yeah,
of push
entire
down
pairing.
Ferraro, yeah.
And that pass that he had to set up the goal for against St. Louis, where he caught the puck and then on his backhand made that breakout pass, was excellent, amazing. He has good breakouts as well. So I really just, I don't know. I'm just super impressed with him. I think there were some definite not good defenders that we could talk about, or just kind of
Sure.
leave it for now. But
No, we can talk about it. I mean, I thought
yeah,
that Ferraro and Ruda were a little bit rough the first game, maybe a lot rough, and then definitely Thrun and Benning were a lot rough in the first game. I
yeah,
think that they all got better in the second game. Um, especially Benning. That's
sure,
at least
sure,
my take on it. I think Ferraro and Ruda, I think a part of it is it's not a great fit really because you don't really have a puck mover there, right? And so I think ideally you'd like more of a puck mover with Ferraro and then drop drop Ruda down and put a puck over Ruda. I think it's a better blend because Walman and CC have a little bit more of a blend, right? Especially since Walman obviously is more offensive, and even CC I think is a better puck mover than maybe some people give him credit for. So I think that's a part of it where Frau and Ruda are just defending, and they can do a decent job of it if that's all they're doing. But then they got to sometimes move the puck out, and that's not as great for them. So
yeah, I really hope that Thrun picks it up. I think he struggled these first 2 games, and I think they are relying on him to be that 6D while Vlasic is injured and everything, and he's really got to step up, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's still pieces. Very young.
Yeah, I see some pieces from Henry that I've liked. Some good passes I've noted in my notes, even in the St. Louis game. I even thought the penalty that they called him for in the Anaheim game, I didn't really see too much. I don't know. I'm not a ref, so. But what I saw more strength. I thought he did a good job in terms of that. In terms of he was matched up. It was who was it? It wasn't Gauthier. It was a pretty big straw. Oh, it was McTavish. And McTavish did kind of. McTavish had the quick first step, so he beat him. I think Drew Amenda pointed out. So that's something that Henry's got to work on. But on the pure strength battling part, I thought he actually did okay with McTavish, who's young but who's a very strong player and the kind of player that Thrun needs to be able to battle with. So not great, but yeah, we'll see. And like I said, I thought Benning's play. I don't know if I think we agree the first game was rough. I thought it was noticeably better in the second game.
Yeah, I think he was better than Thrun was.
Okay.
But maybe they just got to switch out that pairing somehow. Maybe that's what Jack Thompson's for, is that to get him in there to kind of change that up.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I said this after the first game to people that, like, they really need Shakir Mukhamadullin in there because they need somebody who can in these 3 pairings. I mean, you have Walman, but you need another kind of a puck mover in there who also defends reasonably well.
Yeah, he's got to get up to speed too. He hasn't skated at all.
Yeah, he's skating, but he hasn't practiced in a few days. So that's all kind of that's a bit concerning because he was practicing. That was looking good, but then they've kind of dialed it back. He's just skating, so that's not good because that's not an upward trend right there. If they pull you from practice to skate on your own, I mean, it's good he's still skating on his own at least, but still.
Sure. Our last position, I guess we could talk about, is the goaltending position, which Vanacek looked really, really good for like that entire game. He looked awesome. And Blackwood had an amazing start to his game. And when he was doing Mackenzie Blackwood things where you're like, how the hell did he make that save? And then he kind of fell apart, I think, a little bit. I think the whole Sharks did, but he let in a few goals that I think maybe he wanted 1 or 2 just to not squeeze by him.
Right.
But Vanacek looked amazing. Really, really solid in that game. He looked like he was ahead of the play the entire night. So
one thing that Warsawski said about Vanacek that was interesting that I got to watch more is Warsawski after the game really complimented Vanacek's puck handling, which I have not heard. I don't think I've heard a Sharks coach compliment a Sharks goalie's puck handling ever. Maybe the last one was Aaron Dell, maybe because Aaron Dell was actually a pretty good puck handler. So
I've been watching a lot of hockey. Did he come out of like I've been watching a lot of just random teams instead of just the Sharks, but did he come out and like against the boards and then like chuck the puck to the other side of the ice?
Yeah, that was Vanacek.
That was Vanacek? Okay.
That was a good play.
I thought that was cool.
That was a good play, yeah. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. So that's something to watch about Vanacek that I didn't really know too much about before.
Yeah, that's true. That's something I haven't looked into either.
Yeah, but yeah. So that was interesting to hear that shouted out. I guess
I wouldn't be surprised if they went with Vanacek again, just because of how good his game was.
I think he deserves it if you're going by that. I mean, I thought I Blackwood was good in preseason, but I thought Vanacek was better too. So I was mildly surprised that they went with Blackwood opening night. Maybe it was a kind of a Blackwood's an incumbent kind of thing too. So that might be had.
And again, he looked great for 2 periods. He looked awesome.
I do have one more thing about a forward, though. I think this is the last thing for me, and this might cause some controversy or whatever. But maybe it's because it's his second full year. But I'm looking for a little more takeover from Eklund. I haven't thought he was bad or anything like that, but like for example, Toffoli, I've seen Toffoli's been good at what he's good at. Toffoli knows he can't carry the puck really in the neutral zone, so he gives it up. He finds somebody to dish it to. And so I've seen that from Toffoli, but then Toffoli though in like tight spaces though he wins the puck, and that's what he's good at, right? Obviously he can shoot, which is he scored the goal off of that great Celebrini pass, and so I think Toffoli's been kind of what I've expected, but. I think with Eklund, because he's so young that like there's obviously more to give. Am I being too hard on him, you think? I just feel like
I think he looked better in the first game with Celebrini. I think the second game he didn't have that, which is interesting because he figured that with Granlund and everything he would play better, but I don't know. He didn't seem like he was
just some take. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
As decisive, I guess, with the puck, maybe. I think the first game he looked way more insistent on like getting the puck on net and funneling it towards the net. And second game it felt a little bit more like meh, not as high paced, I guess.
Okay.
But I'm not yeah. And then I think Zetterlund's kind of like he's done the things that Zetterlund does well.
Yeah. I mean, he should have 2 goals if not for just a couple inches there, right? And Zetterlund, I think, is a guy I see. We haven't talked about him that much, even in the preseason, because I think he is kind of like a complimentary player, like kind of like a souped up Costin or something like that, where it's sort of like he has to have good line mates around him. He needs to have. He's not going to be do it himself, and so if you expect him to kind of do it himself, then you're going to be disappointed. Whereas Eklund is young enough where I'm like, oh, maybe there's a little more. I thought there'd be a little more like
takeover kind of thing. Yeah.
Just a little more. I don't know, just a little more down low, sort of, puck protection a little bit. I'm not really sure. Maybe I'm being too hard on it, but I don't think his offensive shifts have been as sort of as sort of I don't want to use the word dominant. That's too much, but just what I expect out of him to be able to kind of like control the tempo down low a bit. I haven't seen that, I think, as much as I thought I might after how he closed the season last year. So maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he also needs to get back into the groove a little bit.
Maybe, yeah.
This is the Overreaction podcast. That's what we should name this one. It's our 1 week overreactions. And I'm freaking out about Gushchin.
The chill the fuck out about Goose podcast.
The chill the fuck out about Goose. I'm saying that, everybody's had a bad game or a good game.
I'm not worried about Eklund. It just what I've seen though that
I think he'll be all right.
Yeah.
Just needs
I think I would say one difference I would say though is that like I said, like there were moments where I wasn't crazy about Granlund in the first game, right? And part of it was maybe because he was caddying a player too, kind of, right? But also too, though, that Granlund had amazing plays, though, even if his overall game wasn't there, right? And I would say that, right? We haven't seen Eklund do anything. It's not even about actually scoring or getting assists, but just that kind of like, oh, whoa, kind of.
Yeah. It also doesn't help that Dylan Guenther's ripping shit up in Utah. Have you watched any of Utah?
I didn't even think about that, but
have you watched any of Utah? It's been fun.
I know it's been the Dylan Guenther show, yeah. So
and I think when we spoke with Craig last year, and I remember saying to Craig that I'm just really excited about watching Arizona Coyotes hockey. It's now coming to fruition as Utah Hockey Club's hockey team, but like Dylan Guenther and Logan Cooley and Josh Doan and Clayton Keller and Lawson Krause, like they just created like such a good forward group that it's super fun to watch. So I've been trying to catch some Utah hockey. Anyway, Dylan Guenther has 5 goals in 3 games, so he's been killing it.
Yeah, I didn't know he had that many goals, but well, that's what the Sharks are trying to emulate there, right? Trying to get that.
Yeah, now like just sucks because the Arizona Coyotes were forever made fun of for never being good enough, and then Utah's kind of put it together for right now, and they're on a 3-game win streak, I think. So.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to be going to that first game in Utah, so maybe we'll record from there. So.
Did you get a good seat that you can actually see the ice?
No idea. I don't know what the press box is like there. So.
Oh, it's true. Yeah, the press box. That's right. That's right. Because that's the big joke. Anyway, it's been a fun opening week. I've just been watching. I love opening week because if like during the summer you're sitting on your couch and you're like, there's nothing to watch. Damn it! Like I've watched
Yeah.
like the same TV shows, and now it's like I could just turn on the TV at 7 o'clock and there will be hockey, and I love it, even if it's not
Yeah,
the
my
Sharks.
final kind of takeaway or closing thought is just that, and I've written this in my stories that I thought that first game against St. Louis like was
Hmm.
sort of like each period was like a mini game, right? And
Yeah.
like I didn't know where the Sharks were gonna go from there because like if they were more like they were in the second period, then they're in for a much better season,
Hmm.
not a playoff season, but a much better season. And so I was happy to see in the second game, again, albeit against weaker competition, that they went in that direction, whether it's with or without Danil Gushchin or Macklin Celebrini. But a lot of the players that they picked up, a lot of those grinder types, those Goodrows and whatever, right, like had a discernible impact in terms of making the Sharks a better forechecking team. And
Hmm.
the forecheck, it sets the table for all three zones, and so that's why in my writing, in my post game, all my interviews, that's what I stressed after that Anaheim game. And so I like that direction.
Hmm.
I think that direction can continue with Gushin. I'm not saying don't put him in a lineup. It can continue with obviously it can continue with Celebrini. You can continue with Giovanni Smith if he's in the lineup too.
Sure.
But I like that direction, and so I'm very curious to see what they do on this road trip against two pretty good teams in Dallas and Winnipeg.
Hmm.
So with or without Celebrini, it doesn't matter because even if they still have to play a good team game, and that's what I saw in the second game. No finish, obviously. You can harp on that. No offense, but they played a good team game. And how many times can you say that about the Sharks last year? You can probably count like
On one hand, maybe.
on your two hands.
Yeah.
How many
Right.
times you saw the Sharks play a pretty good 60-minute full team game, and they did. And so I found some promise in that, even if it was against a weak team. Another part of that too we didn't mention was that the PK has been really really good the first couple of games, and I think that that may not be just small sample size because of all the guys that they added that were are their
Good.
calling card is good penalty killing.
Yeah.
Delantria, Goodrow. Add that with Sturm and Kunin, who are pretty good. And give credit to Eklund. Eklund was on there with Granlund.
Hmm.
So a lot. So that's a better group than they were trotting out there on the PK. The PK has actually been a momentum builder. I think the first couple of games where you talk about when teams have shitty power plays and how you lose momentum doing that. And what happens if your power play was shitty? That means the penalty kill probably did a good job, and that builds momentum. And I think it did that in the Anaheim game, even though they did take too many penalties, as you pointed out, too many penalties. But it didn't hurt them, not just because the PK was really good, but because I think it did help kind of build momentum. And
Hmm.
anyway, put the puck in good places and at the end of the PKs and just stuff like that. So
Yeah, and I do like. Yes, the team is just better, but I think these are very early returns. But I do
yeah,
like the way that Warsofsky is coaching currently. I think that there are some like I I did like they tried to protect the lead and they took the rookies out. I mean, I kind of I don't know. I liked that actually. I thought that was
I didn't mind that. Yeah,
I thought it was a you don't know what your team is going to do, and you don't want, even if they do lose, you don't want it to be like on Celebrini and Smith to be like the reason why that they were losing that game.
that game, if you watch, I actually asked Warsawski about the next day, and I mean, you can take what he says for a grain of salt. He's his coach speak, all that stuff. But I thought that they were really bad to start that period, that third period
Mm-hmm.
against St. Louis, and that's where they gave up the two goals, right?
No.
But after that third goal, I think that was off the run turnover. That
Yeah.
from that moment to the 6-on-5, they were actually quite good. I distinctly remember, you can see it in my notes, like there's really great forechecking ship between Granlund, Delantria, both of them down below the goal line. They were they didn't get any offense, but they killed a lot of time. They were
Sure.
grinding it out against Ducks forwards, right? And that's again last year, like that's just Granlund capable of doing that. A lot of other forwards weren't capable of holding their own on a
Mm-hmm.
forecheck like that, like the Landria can. And then on the PK was phenomenal in that particular third period, late in the third period, where I
Mm-hmm.
think Ruda made a great one-on-one battle play, and then Goodrow was also excellent on that PK that I noted. And so up from that goal to the 6-on-5, I thought they were excellent. And the 6-on-5 is a bit of a crapshoot. I mean, it's basically it's another kind of power play basically for the team, right? And so you don't know. And then the goal that Blackwood gave up wasn't, he was screened a little bit, but
Sure.
it wasn't the most remarkable of goals scored by the Blues to tie the game either there. So yeah, and part of it was, I think, going with more experienced players too. I mean, yeah, you lose Celebrini, Gushchin, and Smith out there, but I thought that was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I didn't mind that, and I think it's okay. I know people are like, oh, just put them out so they can learn, but I mean that's sort of like, can't put them out so they can lose kind of too.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay for them to watch. They're gonna get their chances.
Yep.
Celebrini is 18, Smith is 19, Gushin is 22. Like, they're all gonna get their chances to play at the end of games. Maybe not for the Sharks, right? So I know Gushin, maybe not, but on an NHL roster, on an NHL team, and so I'm not too worried about that part of it. So
Yeah. I like the way that Warsaw's been coaching so far.
okay,
I think that's it's a welcome change after last year. Not that was awful for, like, I like David Quinn as well, but I just there's a lot of change happening, and it makes me happy.
all this bitching about Gushin, and you love Warzo.
Well, yeah. I mean, except for that part.
Okay, except for that.
But again,
part.
I would also like to say that I'm being snarky and funny about Gushchin. I'm just poking fun because I think there's a little bit of a double standard. A little bit.
I agree that there's a little bit. Like I said, I think it's a little unfair. I just don't think there's a huge double standard. It's a small enough double standard that if Gushin is good enough to overturn, I think it's a very achievable
Okay.
thing to turn over. Is all I'm saying in the big picture. So.
And we will see him in. I'm gonna predict in the. Chicago game. He comes back.
Okay. Yeah.
Chicago.
I think there's a good chance Dallas beats the Sharks. I mean, it's Dallas, and then they shake things up. They get Gushin in there against Chicago. Chicago's not
And they
good.
win.
They get that win. Let's get that win early too, right? Because the Sharks 0-10-1 to start.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna close it. This really is the last thought I have. I keep saying that, but I had this tweet prepared. I wrote it out. I was gonna tweet it right when the Sharks won the game against St. Louis. It was something like, in 2022, the Sharks started off 0-5-0. In 2023-24, the Sharks started off 0-10-1. The Sharks are now 1-0-0. Yeah.
1-0.
And yeah, I never.
Damn it! Because you wrote it. That's the reason why.
I know. It's my fault.
Shame.
My fault.
You ruined it. No, I'm kidding. So they'll win. That blew my mind that they had not scored 4 goals until the 17th game. That was like, I blocked it out of my memory how terrible we were.
I blocked a lot of that memory.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of can't, but I have.
We're here. All right, everybody. We'll see you all next week. I hope you have a good week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.